A dismissed threat. The Galactic Council Hall was a sight to behold, with its towering crystal pillars that shimmered like stars and the endless hum of alien voices echoing through its chambers. Representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy sat in their golden seats, discussing matters of great importance. At least, that's what they believed. In the middle of the room, a hologram flickered to life, displaying a human delegation. Dr. Elara Cross stood at the forefront. She wasn't wearing fancy robes or glowing armor like the others. Her simple gray jumpsuit and calm demeanor made her look out of place. Yet her piercing eyes seemed to demand attention. "We are here with a warning," Elara began. Her voice was steady, but there was an urgency behind her words. "A cosmic event is approaching, something beyond anything you have seen. We have evidence it will impact the entire galaxy." The hall erupted into laughter. The delegate from the Zolfar Empire, a towering reptilian being, leaned forward. "Humans, always so dramatic. Your evidence is probably nothing more than your primitive guesses." Another delegate, a crystalline entity from the Andarian cluster, chimed in. "Do you think you, a backwater species, can teach us anything about cosmic events? We've studied the universe for millennia." Elara held her ground. "We've detected patterns in the quantum fields surrounding our solar system. They indicate a surge of energy unlike anything recorded before. If we act now, we can prepare. If we wait, it may be too late." The laughter grew louder. The council chair, an ancient being with glowing tendrils, waved dismissively. "Earth has always been a noisy child in our galactic family. We will take note of your concerns, but the Council will not divert resources for a phantom threat." Elara clenched her fists but kept her face neutral. "You misunderstand. We're not asking for resources. We're offering a solution, a collaboration to safeguard the galaxy." "Collaboration?" The Zolfar delegate sneered. "You want to share your primitive technology with us? How generous of you." Elara's lips curled into a faint smile. "You mock what you don't understand. But when this threat arrives, you'll remember this moment." The hologram flickered off before anyone could respond. The council chamber fell silent for a brief moment, only to burst into murmurs and chuckles. "Humans," the Andarian delegate muttered, "always seeking attention." Back on Earth, Elara stepped out of the broadcast room. She took a deep breath, letting the cool air of the underground lab calm her. Around her, engineers and scientists worked tirelessly. The room was filled with the hum of machines, the flicker of monitors, and the occasional beep of completed calculations. "How did it go?" asked Captain Ryan Holt, a former military officer who now led Earth's defense initiatives. Elara shrugged. "As expected." They laughed. "They always do." Ryan leaned against a table, crossing his arms. "They think we're weak." "They think we're irrelevant," Elara corrected. She glanced at a nearby screen displaying a massive array of satellites orbiting Earth. "But they won't think that for long." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "You really think we're ready?" "We have no choice," Elara said. Her voice softened as she added, "The Council won't believe us until it's too late. When the storm hits, they'll realize their mistake. And by then, we'll already be ahead." Far across the galaxy, in the Zolfar capital, Supreme Commander Vrothak received a report from one of his spies stationed on Earth. The holographic message showed a grainy image of Earth's orbital satellites and a brief summary of their activity. "Humans are focusing all their efforts on their primitive satellites," the spy reported. "They claim to be preparing for a cosmic event, but it's likely another one of their delusions." Vrothak smirked, his sharp teeth glinting under the room's harsh lights. "Let them waste their energy. When they tire themselves out, we'll swoop in and claim their resources. Earth has always been more useful as a target than an ally." The spy hesitated. "There is one thing, Commander. The humans' energy readings. They don't match anything we've seen before. It's as if they've tapped into something new." Vrothak waved his hand dismissively. "Humans are unpredictable, yes, but they are no threat to us. Keep an eye on them. Report back if they do anything truly unusual. Yes, Commander. As the transmission ended, Vrothak leaned back in his chair. The idea of humans being a threat was laughable. They were a small, weak species with no influence beyond their solar system. Whatever storm they claimed was coming was probably a figment of their imagination. Back on Earth, Elara stood in a darkened control room, staring at a live feed of the night sky. Rows of satellites glimmered like tiny stars, each one part of a vast and secretive network. "We've built more than defenses," she murmured to herself. "We've built a revolution." One of her engineers approached. "Dr. Cross, the first wave of energy distribution is ready." Elara nodded. "Begin testing. Quietly. We can't let them know what's coming." As the energy wave was deployed, faint ripples spread through the quantum fields. The aliens didn't notice it yet, but the galaxy was about to change forever. The first flame. Across the galaxy, a troubling silence began to ripple through the hyperlanes. Trade ships vanished without distress signals. Alien outposts reported flickering power grids and strange disruptions in their communication systems. At first, it was dismissed as minor glitches, but soon, the scale of the anomalies became impossible to ignore. In the Zulthar capital, Supreme Commander Vrothak received his third report of the week. A high-ranking fleet from the Nebular Division had disappeared without a trace. The fleet had been on a routine patrol near the Outer Spiral, a region long regarded as a safe haven for interstellar travel. Their last transmission was cut off mid-sentence, the officer reported, nervously glancing at Vrothak's razor-sharp claws tapping the table. No wreckage, no escape pods, no signatures of enemy weapons. It's as if they evaporated. Vrothak growled, his reptilian eyes narrowing. Evaporated. Fleets don't evaporate. Something or someone is behind this. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Elara Cross monitored the developments with an unshakable focus. The control room was alive with activity. Engineers fine-tuning calculations, operators relaying data from Earth's orbiting satellites, and analysts mapping the effects of the energy wave on galactic systems. One of her lead engineers, a sharp-minded young man named Lai, approached with a data tablet. Phase 1 has exceeded projections. The quantum disruption field is spreading faster than expected. It's already interfering with their hyperlane networks. Elara allowed herself a small smile. Good. The longer they stay blind to its origin, the stronger our position becomes. Lai hesitated. Do you think they'll retaliate once they figure it out? They'll try, Elara replied, her voice steady. But by then, it'll be too late. At that moment, Captain Ryanholt entered, his expression grim. We've intercepted a communication from the Zulthar fleet. They're starting to suspect something. Elara raised an eyebrow. Let them suspect. Suspicion leads to mistakes. Ryan placed a handheld screen on the table, showing a blurry recording of alien ships gathering near Earth's satellite field. We need to be ready for anything. They've already sent scouts. Elara studied the footage, her mind racing. They'll investigate, but they won't find anything. The quantum disruption field leaves no signature they can trace. As long as we stay ahead, they'll remain in the dark. Far away, in the Andarian cluster, a research outpost known for its advanced sensor arrays detected something extraordinary. The station's chief scientist, a crystalline being named Citral, reviewed the data with increasing unease. Impossible, Citral muttered, their faceted form pulsing with light. The quantum field fluctuations shouldn't behave like this. Their assistant, a smaller crystalline entity, glanced at the readings. Could it be a natural phenomenon? No, Citral replied firmly. This is deliberate. Someone has engineered this disruption. And whoever they are, they understand quantum mechanics on a level we haven't even theorized. A sudden alarm interrupted their analysis. The outpost's power grid flickered, and the station plunged into chaos. Citral's voice rose above the commotion. Activate emergency protocols. Record everything. But before the protocols could be initiated, The station went dark. For a brief moment, the outpost glowed faintly, then dissolved into a cloud of shimmering particles. The quantum disruption field had claimed another victim. Back on Earth, the success of Phase 1 emboldened Elara and her team. But as they celebrated the progress, a new challenge loomed. Reports indicated that a rogue faction within the Galactic Council, alarmed by the unexplained disruptions, had mobilized a reconnaissance fleet to investigate Earth. Elara convened a strategy meeting with her core team. "We knew they'd come eventually," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "Our job is to make sure they underestimate us until it's too late." Ryan frowned. "If they realize we're behind this, they won't hesitate to launch a full-scale invasion." "They won't realize," Elara replied. "Not yet. The quantum disruption field masks its origin. By the time they piece it together, their infrastructure will be in shambles." Lai added, "The energy wave is already destabilizing their long-range weapons. Even if they send fleets, they won't be operating at full capacity." Ryan still looked uneasy. "You're betting on a lot of unknowns, Elara." She met his gaze with unwavering confidence. "That's what humans do best, bet on the unknown." As the alien reconnaissance fleet approached Earth, strange anomalies began to plague their systems. Navigation computers malfunctioned, causing ships to drift off course. Weapons systems failed to respond, and communication channels were flooded with distorted human voices repeating one chilling phrase: "Humanity rises." The fleet's commander, a cautious and battle-hardened veteran, barked orders to his crew. "Find the source of these disruptions. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." But no amount of preparation could save them. One by one, the ships were engulfed by an invisible force, their structures crumbling as they vanished from existence. In their final moments, the humans' message echoed louder, as if mocking their demise. Back on Earth, Elara watched the live feed of the fleet's destruction. Her expression remained calm, but there was a fire in her eyes. "Let the galaxy laugh at us," she murmured. "Let them call us primitive. They have no idea what we've become." For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's overlords were facing a threat they couldn't understand. And Earth, the planet they had dismissed as insignificant, was preparing to set their worlds ablaze. Humanity's hidden ace. The Galactic Overlords were no strangers to war. They had conquered countless civilizations, crushed rebellions, and erased entire species from history. Yet, as the strange disruptions spread through their territories, unease crept into the hearts of even the most seasoned commanders. This wasn't a war they could fight with fleets and weapons. This was something else, something they couldn't see or understand. In the depths of Earth's secret command bunker, Dr. Elara Cross stood before a massive holographic projection of the galaxy. Dotted lines represented trade routes, military positions, and communication hubs, but the most striking features were the glowing red zones, areas where Earth's quantum disruption field had already taken effect. They were spreading fast. "Elara, the Council's networks are breaking down," said Lai, her lead engineer. He pointed to a section of the hologram where an entire alien system had gone dark. "Their fleets can't navigate, and their long-range weapons are failing. The Andarians just lost a moon base because their orbit calculations were off." Elara nodded, her gaze sharp. "Good. Let them feel chaos. The more they panic, the more mistakes they'll make." Ryan Holt leaned against the table, arms crossed. "We've been playing defense, Elara. Don't you think it's time we went on the offensive?" She glanced at him. "We already are. They just don't know it yet." Ryan frowned. "We're still hiding behind the disruption field. What happens when they figure out it's coming from Earth?" Elara's lips curved into a faint smile. "They won't. Not in time." Far away, in the Zolthar Empire's War Council chamber, Supreme Commander Vrothak slammed his clawed hand on the table, shattering a holographic console. His officers flinched but dared not speak. "Useless," he roared. "Our fleets are paralyzed, our trade routes are collapsing, and our enemies are laughing at us. How is it that no one knows who is behind this? One of his advisors, a pale-skinned humanoid with glowing eyes, spoke cautiously. Commander, we've traced the disruptions to the outer spiral, the humans' territory. Vrothak sneered. Humans, you expect me to believe that a primitive species is responsible for this chaos? The advisor hesitated. They've been unusually quiet, sir. Their satellites are emitting strange signals. We believe they've developed new technology. Vrothak leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. If the humans have found a weapon that threatens us, we will take it from them. Prepare an assault fleet. Earth must fall. Back on Earth, Elara and her team prepared for the inevitable. They knew the Overlords would come, and they knew Earth couldn't stand against a direct invasion. At least not yet. But Elara had a plan. Project Quantum Rain, she announced during a high-level briefing. The room fell silent as she brought up a schematic of Earth's orbital satellite network. It's time to show them what we've been working on. The network wasn't just for communication or reconnaissance. It was a weapon. Each satellite was equipped with a quantum entanglement generator, capable of creating localized disruptions in the very fabric of space-time. When activated in unison, they could deliver a devastating blow to any target within range. This is our ace, Elara continued. The Overlords think they're hunting us. They don't realize they're walking into a trap. Ryan frowned. What if they send more fleets than we can handle? Elara's eyes gleamed with determination. Then we'll show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. The first wave of the Zolfar fleet arrived days later, their massive ships blotting out the stars as they approached Earth. They had expected an easy victory, a swift conquest of a weak and insignificant planet. But as they entered Earth's orbit, their systems began to fail. Commander, we're losing power, a Zolfar officer shouted. Weapons are offline. Navigation is unstable. Vrothak, aboard the flagship, growled in frustration. Find the source of the interference and eliminate it. But it was too late. Elara gave the order, and Project Quantum Rain was activated. The satellite network sprang to life, emitting pulses of entangled energy that rippled through the Zolfar fleet. Ships imploded one by one, their hulls crumbling as the laws of physics warped around them. From the ground, humanity watched the spectacle with awe and relief. For the first time, they weren't just defending, they were winning. As the remnants of the Zolfar fleet retreated, battered and broken, Vrothak vowed revenge. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. How had the humans achieved such power? What else were they hiding? Meanwhile, on Earth, Elara stood on the observation deck of the command bunker, gazing at the stars. The battle had been a victory, but she knew it was only the beginning. The Overlords wouldn't stop until they uncovered the truth. She turned to Ryan. They'll come back. Stronger this time. Ryan nodded. And when they do? Elara's expression hardened. We'll be ready. Humanity has been dismissed for too long. Now we rise. Across the galaxy, whispers spread of Earth's defiance. The Overlords dismissed it as a fluke, a lucky shot. But those who paid closer attention, rogue factions, rebel groups, and oppressed species, saw something else. Hope. Humanity had done the impossible. And they weren't done yet. The Galactic Collapse. The galaxy was unraveling. Once vibrant trade routes turned into ghost lanes, fleets drifted aimlessly, and entire star systems were cut off from communication. What had once been the orderly domain of the Overlords was now a chaotic web of disarray. Panic spread like wildfire. Supreme Commander Vrothak, now scared both physically and mentally from his failed assault on Earth, sat in his war room, surrounded by his advisors. The holographic map before them showed the extent of the collapse. Nearly 40% of their empire's systems were marked in red, signifying total loss of control. Even the Zolfar homeworld wasn't immune. Its power grids were failing, and civil unrest was spreading in the streets. This isn't just an attack on us, Vrothak growled, his voice a low rumble. It's an attack on the galaxy itself. One of his advisors, a slender insectoid creature, nodded nervously. The disruption field is spreading faster than we can counteract. If we don't act soon, our core systems will fall. Vrafak's claws dug into the table. Earth must be destroyed. But Commander, the advisor hesitated. If the humans have such advanced technology, direct confrontation cold. I don't care about risks. Vrafak roared. If we let this continue, the Council will collapse, and we'll lose everything. Mobilize every available fleet. We'll crush Earth with overwhelming force. On Earth, the mood in the command bunker was tense but resolute. Dr. Elara Cross had just finished analyzing the latest data from the quantum disruption field. The results were better than she had hoped. The Overlords' infrastructure was crumbling, their fleets scattered, and their grip on the galaxy weakening by the day. Captain Ryan Holt approached, holding a tablet with intercepted alien communications. The Zolfar are doubling down. They're mobilizing everything they have for a final assault. Elara leaned against the table, her gaze fixed on the holographic galaxy map. Good. Let them come. Ryan raised an eyebrow. You're not worried. This is their full might. They're desperate, Elara said, her voice steady. Desperation leads to mistakes. Besides, they don't know what we've been working on. Lai, the lead engineer, chimed in from across the room. The new planetary defense grid is online. If they try to invade, they'll face a wall they can't breach. Elara nodded. But we're not just defending. It's time to take the fight to them. As the Zolfar fleet assembled, whispers of rebellion spread across the galaxy. The Andarians, once staunch allies of the Council, were the first to break ranks. Their leaders, furious over the loss of their moon base and the Council's inability to protect their systems, declared neutrality. Other species followed suit, withdrawing their support and isolating themselves from the crumbling overlords. But it wasn't just the major powers turning away. On countless planets, underground resistance groups saw Earth's defiance as a spark of hope. For centuries, the overlords had ruled with an iron fist, crushing anyone who dared to oppose them. Now, for the first time, someone was fighting back and winning. Messages began pouring into Earth's networks. Offers of aid, intelligence, and even military support came from unexpected places. A rebel faction from the Draxian Dominion sent blueprints for the Council's most secure communication arrays. A rogue Andarian scientist provided critical data on the weaknesses of Zolfar ships. Even an anonymous insider within the Council leaked information about their fleet movements. Ryan reviewed the incoming transmissions, his expression a mix of awe and caution. We're becoming the symbol of resistance, he said. But how do we know we can trust them? We don't, Elara replied. But we'll use whatever advantage we can get. This isn't just about Earth anymore. The galaxy is watching, and we can't afford to fail. The first major counterstrike came when Earth's allies helped sabotage a Zolfar supply convoy. Using the stolen blueprints, a small team of human and alien operatives infiltrated the convoy's command ship, disabling its systems and redirecting the supplies to rebel forces. It was a small victory, but its impact was massive. The Overlord's aura of invincibility was shattered. News of the operation spread like wildfire. On the Zolfar capital planet, riots broke out as citizens demanded answers. In the Andarian cluster, rebel forces seized control of several key installations. Even within the Council itself, cracks began to show. Some members whispered about negotiating with Earth, while others called for immediate retaliation. Back on Earth, Elara and her team prepared for the inevitable. The Zolfar fleet would arrive within days, and this time, there would be no room for error. The planetary defense grid, an array of orbital platforms equipped with advanced quantum disruptors, was their first line of defense. But Elara knew it wouldn't be enough. Project Starfall, she announced during a high-level briefing. The room fell silent as she unveiled the plan. Starfall was Earth's most ambitious project yet, a fleet of unmanned ships, each equipped with a prototype quantum core capable of generating localized black holes. The ships were designed to be one-way weapons, sacrificing themselves to create devastating singularities that could destroy entire fleets. Ryan stared at the schematics, his expression grim. This could wipe them out, but it could also destabilize the entire system. "It's a risk we have to take," Elara said. "If we don't, Earth won't survive." As the Zolfar fleet entered Earth's orbit, their ships bristling with weapons, the humans made their move. The planetary defense grid activated, firing concentrated quantum disruptor beams that tore through the enemy ranks. But the Zolfar kept coming, their sheer numbers overwhelming the defenses. Then Project Starfall went into action. The unmanned ships emerged from hidden bases on the far side of the moon, hurtling toward the Zolfar fleet at impossible speeds. One by one, they detonated their quantum cores, creating miniature black holes that swallowed ships whole. In the chaos, the Zolfar flagship was hit, its hull cracking as it was pulled toward the singularity. On board, Vrothek roared in fury, his final transmission echoing through the galaxy. "This isn't the end, humans. We will rise again." But his words were lost as the singularity consumed him. When the dust settled, the Zolfar fleet was gone. Earth had survived, but the battle had taken its toll. Elara stood in the command bunker, staring at the wreckage visible on the orbital monitors. She knew the fight was far from over. The Overlords would regroup, and the galaxy would remain in turmoil. But for the first time, humanity wasn't just surviving. It was leading a revolution. And Elara was determined to see it through to the end. A desperate gamble. The galaxy teetered on the edge of chaos. The Zolfar fleet's devastating loss near Earth had sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. Planets once united under the Overlord's iron grip were now in open rebellion. The Andarian cluster had declared complete independence, while rogue factions spread throughout the spiral arms like wildfire. But the Overlords were far from defeated. In a secret council meeting held in the ruins of their capital, the surviving leaders made a desperate decision. They would unleash their ultimate weapon. Deep within the Zolfar Empire lay Vortex Prime, a hidden research station orbiting a dying star. It was here that the Overlords had developed a doomsday device, known as the Stellar Annihilator. It harnessed the unstable energy of collapsing stars, capable of obliterating entire star systems with a single strike. "This is madness," shouted Commander Ixel of the Andarian remnants, one of the few council members who still remained loyal. Her crystalline form pulsed with anger. If the Annihilator fails, it could destabilize the entire galactic core. Supreme General Krovar, a hulking reptilian warlord, growled in response. "It is our only option. Humanity has humiliated us, and the galaxy is slipping through our fingers. This weapon will remind them who rules the stars." Ixel hesitated but eventually lowered her head. "If we are to use it, we must ensure it succeeds. Failure would not just destroy us, it would end everything." On Earth, the tension was palpable. Dr. Elara Cross had received intelligence about the Stellar Annihilator through a network of defected operatives. The information was grim. The weapon wasn't just powerful, it was unstable. If triggered improperly, it could cause a chain reaction that would destabilize nearby systems and potentially create a galaxy-wide collapse. "They're playing with fire," Elara said during an emergency meeting with her team. The hologram of Vortex Prime glowed ominously in the center of the room. "And if we don't stop them, everyone burns." Ryan Holt paced back and forth, his expression grim. "We can't let them fire that thing. But even if we take it out, they'll see us coming." Lai, the lead engineer, tapped on his tablet, pulling up a schematic of Earth's fleet. "We don't have enough ships to mount a direct assault. Not against their defenses." Ilara's gaze darkened. "We don't need a fleet. We just need one ship." Ryan stopped pacing and turned to her. "You mean the Erebus?" The Erebus was Earth's most advanced prototype, a stealth ship equipped with cutting-edge quantum phase technology. It could slip past enemy sensors and deliver a precision strike. But it had never been tested in combat. Elara nodded. It's our best shot. We send a small team, disable the annihilator, and get out before anyone knows we were there. Ryan crossed his arms. And if the stealth tech fails, we don't come back, Elara said simply. The mission was assembled in less than 48 hours. Ryan volunteered to lead the strike team, joined by a mix of elite human operatives and rebel allies. Among them was Kale, a defected Andarian scientist who had provided critical intel on the annihilator. As the Erebus prepared for launch, Elara stood on the platform, watching Ryan strap into his gear. "You don't have to do this," she said. Ryan smirked. "Someone's got to keep your crazy plans from getting us all killed." Elara forced a smile, but couldn't hide the worry in her eyes. "Just make sure you come back." The Erebus slipped into the void, its sleek, obsidian hull reflecting nothing as it moved through the darkness. Inside, the team worked in silence, their faces tense as they approached Vortex Prime. Kale studied the station's schematics on a glowing console. "Their defenses are formidable. But if we can reach the core chamber, we can overload the annihilator's containment field. That should destroy the weapon without triggering a full collapse." "And how long do we have to get out after that?" Ryan asked. Kale hesitated. "Approximately 90 seconds. Ryan sighed. "Great. No pressure." As the Erebus neared Vortex Prime, its stealth systems were put to the test. The station's perimeter was surrounded by automated sentry drones, each armed with advanced detection systems. The team held their breath as the ship slipped past the first wave of sensors, then the second. Finally, Kale whispered, "We're in." The Erebus docked in a blind spot near the station's maintenance hatch. The team disembarked, moving swiftly through the narrow corridors. The station's interior was a labyrinth of glowing conduits and pulsing energy fields, its air thick with the hum of barely contained power. They reached the core chamber without incident, but as Kale began hacking into the control panel, alarms blared. "They've detected us," Kale shouted. Ryan raised his weapon. "How long do you need?" 2 minutes. "We've got 90 seconds," Ryan barked, taking position by the entrance as the first wave of Zolthar guards arrived. The firefight was brutal. The team fought valiantly, using their compact weapons and Kale's improvised gadgets to hold off the enemy. Meanwhile, Kale worked furiously, his crystalline hands flying over the controls. "I've got it," Kale yelled, overloading the containment field now. The station shuddered as warning lights flashed. A voice echoed over the intercom in a harsh alien tongue. "Core destabilization imminent. Evacuate immediately." "Time to go," Ryan shouted, pulling Kale away from the panel. The team sprinted back to the Erebus, dodging explosions and enemy fire. The station's structure groaned as the annihilator's containment field collapsed, releasing a wave of energy that tore through its core. The Erebus launched just as the station erupted in a blinding explosion. The shockwave rippled through space, scattering debris and sending nearby Zolthar ships into disarray. Back on Earth, Elara and her team watched the feed from the Erebus. The moment the explosion lit up the screen, the command room erupted in cheers. But Elara's eyes remained on the monitor, searching for a signal. Finally, Ryan's voice crackled through the comms. "Mission accomplished. We're coming home." Elara exhaled, a rare smile breaking across her face, but her relief was short-lived. The Zolthar wouldn't stop with this failure. Their desperation was growing, and Elara knew the final confrontation was coming. The galaxy was crumbling, and Earth had lit the match, turning the tide. The destruction of Vortex Prime sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The Overlord's most fearsome weapon, the stellar annihilator, was gone, reduced to a cascade of glowing debris orbiting its dying star. For the first time, the balance of power had shifted. But the Overlords were not defeated. If anything, they were more dangerous now, desperation fueling their fury. Across the galaxy, their remnants clamped down harder on rebel systems, purging dissenters and doubling the forces patrolling their strongholds. The galaxy had become a battlefield, and Earth was at its center. In Earth's command bunker, Dr. Elara Cross stood before a gathering of human and rebel leaders. Holograms of Andarian resistance fighters, Zolthar defectors, and even rogue merchant captains shimmered around the table. The Overlords have suffered a major blow, but they're regrouping, Elara began. Our sources indicate they're consolidating their remaining fleets in the Trion Nebula. They're planning a counterattack. Kale, the defected Andarian scientist, nodded gravely. The Trion Nebula is a fortress. The gravitational anomalies make it nearly impossible to navigate without their specific star charts. Any fleet attempting an assault would be torn apart. Reinhold, still bearing the scars from the Vortex Prime mission, leaned forward. So how do we hit them if we can't get close? Elara tapped a console, and the hologram shifted to display an alien structure deep within the nebula. We don't fight them head-on. We take out their command nexus. The room fell silent as everyone stared at the image. It was a massive station, bristling with weapons and surrounded by defensive mines. The command nexus wasn't just the heart of their operations. It was the hub of their entire fleet's communication network. If it fell, their fleets would be left blind and scattered. A rebel leader, a scared Draxian captain, shook his head. That's suicide. Even if we get past the nebula, their defenses will rip us apart. Not if we have their star charts, Elara countered. She turned to Kale. You said there's a faction within the Overlords that's questioning their leadership. Can we make contact? Kale hesitated. There is one possibility. General Aegis. He's an Andarian who's grown disillusioned with the Council's methods. If we can reach him, he might provide the charts. And if he doesn't? Ryan asked. Elara's expression hardened. Then we find another way. The mission to contact General Aegis was perilous. The Erebus once again became the key to Earth's plans, slipping into enemy territory under the cover of its advanced stealth systems. Ryan, Kale, and a small team infiltrated a remote Andarian outpost where Aegis was rumored to be stationed. The outpost was eerily quiet, its corridors lit by the faint glow of crystalline walls. As they navigated the maze-like structure, Ryan kept his weapon raised, his senses on high alert. Finally, they reached a chamber where Aegis stood, flanked by two heavily armed guards. The Andarian general was an imposing figure, his crystalline form reflecting an inner light that pulsed with steady resolve. You have a lot of nerve coming here, Aegis said, his voice echoing like a chorus. Do you know the risk you've put me in? Kale stepped forward. General, the Overlords are crumbling. Their methods are no longer sustainable. We can end this war, but we need your help. Aegis's gaze shifted to Ryan. And why should I trust humans? Your kind has brought nothing but chaos. Ryan didn't flinch. Because chaos is the only thing they fear. You know as well as we do that the Council's rule is over. You can either cling to a sinking ship or help us build something better. Aegis was silent for a moment, his crystalline form flickering. Then he raised a hand, signaling his guards to stand down. Follow me. Aegis provided the star charts, but his warning was clear. The nebula is treacherous, even with these charts, and the command nexus is protected by an AI defense system. It will adapt to any strategy you throw at it. Back on Earth, Elara and her team prepared for the mission. The plan was simple in theory, but nearly impossible in execution. Infiltrate the nebula, disable the AI defense system, and destroy the command nexus before the Overlords could regroup. As the Allied fleet entered the Trion Nebula, the gravitational anomalies began to take their toll. Ships swerved dangerously close to each other, and navigation systems flickered with static. But the star charts held true, guiding them through the swirling chaos. The first wave of enemy defenses hit hard. Automated mines detonated in brilliant flashes, and sentry drones swarmed the fleet. Earth's advanced fighters, supported by rebel ships, pushed through, carving a path toward the Nexus. Inside the Erebus, Ryan and his team prepared to infiltrate the station. Cal worked furiously at his console, hacking into the Nexus's outer defenses. "The AI is already adapting," he warned. "We'll only get one shot at this." The team breached the station's core, a cavernous chamber filled with pulsating energy conduits. At its center was the AI mainframe, a massive sphere of swirling light. As Cal began his work, the AI's voice echoed through the chamber. Intruders detected, eliminating threats. Drones descended from the ceiling, their energy weapons blazing. Ryan and his team fought them off, covering Cal as he uploaded the virus designed to disable the AI. "It's done," Cal shouted. "But we need to get out now." Ryan glanced at the mainframe, its light growing unstable. "Not yet. We need to make sure this thing is gone for good." He fired his weapon at the core, shattering its outer shell. The room shook violently as the Nexus began to collapse. The team barely made it back to the Erebus before the station detonated, sending a shockwave through the nebula. The Allied fleet, though battered, emerged victorious. The Overlords' fleets, now leaderless and without coordination, scattered across the galaxy. Back on Earth, Elara watched the victory unfold on the monitors. The galaxy was changing, and for the first time, humanity wasn't just surviving, it was leading. But she knew the final battle was yet to come. The Overlords were fractured, but they weren't defeated. And the galaxy, though free from their grip, now looked to Earth for guidance. "We've turned the tide," Elara said quietly. "Now we have to finish the war." A new era. The destruction of the command nexus marked the beginning of the end for the Overlords. Their once mighty fleets were now leaderless, their worlds plagued by rebellion, and their influence over the galaxy shattered. The tide had turned, but the fight was far from over. In the chaos, fragments of the Galactic Council clung to power, rallying what forces they had left for one final stand. In the heart of Earth's command bunker, Dr. Elara Cross and her team prepared for what they hoped would be the last battle. The holographic map of the galaxy showed a single flashing point, Aegis Prime, the Overlord's hidden sanctuary. Isolated within a dense star cluster, it was the last bastion of their power, a fortress surrounded by impenetrable energy shields and a fleet of ships loyal to their cause. "This is their final stand," Elara said, her voice steady but charged with urgency. "If we take Aegis Prime, the Overlords are finished. The galaxy will be free." Ryan Holt leaned on the table, studying the defenses. "That shield is a problem. We've seen what it can do. It reflects energy attacks and disrupts any physical approach. Even with our fleet, we can't break through." Kale, the defected Andarian scientist, stepped forward. "There is a way. The shield is powered by a quantum core buried deep beneath the surface. If we can disable it, the shield will collapse." "And how do we get to the core?" Ryan asked. Kale hesitated. "That's the difficult part. The core is heavily guarded. The only way in is through their orbital security network. We'd need to disable it from within before a ground team can infiltrate." Elara's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll split the operation. Ryan, you'll lead the assault team to disable the orbital network. I'll lead the ground team to take out the core." Ryan frowned. "You're going in. That's not your job." Elara's gaze didn't waver. "It is now. This is the endgame. I need to see it through." The Allied fleet gathered in the dark expanse near the star cluster. Ships from across the galaxy. Human, Andarian, Zolfar defectors, and rebel factions, assembled for the assault. It was an unprecedented sight. Species that had once been enemies now stood united under a single cause. As the fleet prepared to jump into the cluster, Elara addressed the crews through the communication network. "Today, we fight not just for Earth, but for every world that has suffered under the Council's rule. We've been underestimated, mocked, and oppressed. But now we stand together. Let this be the day we reclaim our galaxy." Cheers erupted across the fleet as the ships leaped into hyperspace. The battle for Aegis Prime began with a coordinated assault on its orbital defenses. Ryan's team aboard the Erebus navigated through a swarm of automated drones and sentry turrets, hacking into the security network while under heavy fire. The station's defenses adapted quickly, but the team's quick thinking and Kel's expertise gave them an edge. Almost there, Kel shouted as he worked at a console, bypassing the last layer of encryption. Ryan covered him, firing at a wave of approaching drones. "Make it faster, Kel, or we're toast." Finally, the orbital network went offline, leaving a gap in the planet's defenses. "You're clear, Elara," Ryan transmitted. "Go now." Elara's team descended to the planet's surface in a stealth transport, landing just outside the core facility. The landscape was stark and unwelcoming, dominated by jagged cliffs and glowing energy fields. The facility itself was a massive structure carved into the side of a mountain, its entrance guarded by towering sentinels. The team moved swiftly, using the shadows to avoid detection. Inside, the corridors were a maze of sleek metal and pulsating lights. They encountered resistance, elite guards loyal to the Council, but their training and resolve carried them forward. At the heart of the facility, they found the quantum core, a massive, pulsating sphere suspended within a containment field. Kel's earlier schematics had shown them how to disable it, but it required precise synchronization. As Elara's team began their work, an alarm blared. A booming voice echoed through the chamber. "You dare defile the sanctum of the Overlords. You will be erased." From the shadows emerged a towering Zolfar warlord clad in advanced armor. It was General Krovar, one of the Council's last loyalists. "You think you've won," he snarled, his voice dripping with contempt. "You've only hastened your demise." The ensuing battle was fierce. Krovar's strength and weaponry outmatched anything Elara's team had faced before, but they fought with the determination of those who had nothing to lose. Finally, in a desperate move, Elara activated a magnetic disruptor, disabling Krovar's armor long enough for her team to take him down. With the path clear, they completed the shutdown sequence. The quantum core flickered, then went dark. Above the planet, the shield collapsed, leaving the fortress vulnerable. The Allied fleet wasted no time. With the shield down, they launched a full-scale assault on Aegis Prime. Ships swarmed the fortress, targeting its remaining defenses. Explosions lit up the sky as the Overlord's fleet crumbled under the combined might of the rebels. Back on the surface, Elara and her team emerged from the facility, battered but victorious. The sight of the Allied fleet overwhelming the fortress brought a rare smile to her face. As the last of the Overlord's forces fell, a universal broadcast was sent from the fleet's flagship. It was Elara's voice. "To every corner of the galaxy, the Overlords have fallen. Their reign is over. Today, we reclaim our freedom. Together, we will build a new era, one where no world is forgotten, no voice silenced." Across the galaxy, celebrations erupted. Planets that had suffered under the Council's rule declared independence. Rebel groups laid down their arms, their mission complete. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was free. In Earth's command bunker, Elara watched the celebrations unfold on the monitors. Ryan approached, still covered in the grime of battle. "You did it," he said. "We did it," Elara corrected. She turned to the holographic map, now free of the red zones that had once marked the Overlord's control. But the real work begins now. Winning the war was the easy part. Building peace, that's the challenge. Ryan smirked, always the optimist. Elara's gaze remained on the map. Not optimism, Ryan. Hope. Humanity wasn't just fighting for itself. We were fighting for a future worth believing in. And with that, Earth took its place among the stars, not as a conqueror, but as a beacon of hope in a galaxy reborn.